Well, welcome to another edition of Meet Your Neighbor. I'm Joey Prey, and today we're interviewing Dan Hoffman.
Thanks for having me here today, Joey.
Yes, sir. You may remember we interviewed Dan's wife, Dawn, on an earlier version. Dan's another one of our wonderful staff here at Prya Funeral Home. So, Dan, tell me about where you grew up.
Well, it was a small farming community down in Indiana, Joey. Town called Winnemac, named after an old Indian chief.
Oh, okay.
And it's probably about a third of the size of Charlotte. And that was another thing I had to learn to say Charlotte. I couldn't say Charlotte. I
Correct.
was corrected on that so many times.
We're glad you've learned that.
Yeah, but it's a small farming community located about halfway between Indianapolis and Chicago. It's about 100 miles either way. It's kind of like in the hub of a wheel. You can go to Lafayette, South Bend, 60 miles, Michigan City, 60 miles, Fort Wayne, 90 miles, and Chicago, 190 to Indianapolis. So you could go to those places, visit for the day, come back home, and be in the Corn Belt.
Oh, yeah,
Farming
okay.
community, small industry. There's a few factories there, and it's a nice community. It's a good place to grow up.
What was it that you worked in? You worked in real estate down there
Was in
before
real
moving
estate.
up here?
Yes, let's see, 25, 30 years in real estate. Started out as an agent and then became a broker. And good learning experience. I mean, I had a job time I was 7 years old in the community and eventually ended up in real estate. And it taught me a lot of things that helped me here.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was good. And I thought I had seen and heard it all in the real estate business. But believe me, since I've been here, this has topped it.
Well, you do hear a lot of interesting stories. I mean, you deal with families that we take care of on a pre-need basis or making arrangements
Yes.
before need. And yes, I'm certain that you hear a lot of different stories as we do.
Yeah, but it's very enjoyable. Wish I'd have been doing this 30, 40 years ago.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Really? Yeah.
So, what brought you to the area?
Well, it started out that I got married. Well, gee, you marry a girl out of state and she's not going to come to your place, so it's like, well, where does she live? Michigan. Who loves snow like I do? So anyhow, we had been married for a couple of years, and I was looking for a job up here at that time. I really did not want to go back to school again to do real estate, so I thought, I can do a lot of different things. So I said, Dawn, we'll just start putting out feelers, whatever. After we'd gotten married, though, I'll back up. Dawn's job that she had for several years, she retired from the court system. So she was in, as you know, to visit you one day, and well, it was at the candlelight service that year
Oh, yes,
for her
yeah.
nephew. And so at that point, she said something to you about, hey, you know, she's looking for work, and the bantered back and forth. Next thing I know, a month later something, she came in to see you, and you said if I wanted to see her, if she was going to work here, then I need to put an application in because I was only coming up on weekends. I was driving 400 some miles round trip. And then eventually you decided, I'll take a chance on this pair here, and let's change up things with our pre-planning program and our aftercare. And you asked us to come work for you.
Yes.
And which I appreciate that.
Well, we
And-
certainly appreciate having you with us.
Yeah. It's been great. I really have. And for me, it's a whole different family, you know. When you move away from what was your home for your whole life, and then you step into another community, to be welcomed, I can't say that I've never been welcomed here. It's been good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit more about yourself. Like, I know you've got a very interesting hobby, so tell me about that.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of them, actually.
Well, yeah, I've had a couple, two or three. The one that I have maintained probably somewhat the longest that I really enjoy is the amateur radio. Ham radio, for some people, they think of CBs and stuff, and it's not that. There's a lot of aspects of it that, you know, it goes many different ways. You know, it's the technical thing of it. If you really want to get technical, you can. If you just want to sit and talk to somebody, locally, or if you want to go around the world, if you want to do moon bounce, if you really want to bounce all your signal off the moon and bring it right back to the earth, you can do that too.
Really?
Yeah, it's fun. And I always said, gee, someday wouldn't that be great to do? And I've talked to Dawn about that, but I'm not so sure she'll let me go that far. But that, and as far as amateur radio, yeah, that, and Dawn got into it. She decided that she liked what she had seen in mine. I have a station setting up in Indiana, and she said to me one day, she said, I really think I want to get my ham license. I said, you do? I said, now you're going to have to study, and it's going to be a little expensive, because I said, I'm going to have to set up a station here. She agreed. She studied, and she's got her second class of licenses, and she wants to go for the third, so I said, that's great. But as far as me, yeah, that's been the most enjoyable. I love target shooting. I did a lot of amateur photography for years.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so I did a lot of that, enjoyed it, but I haven't done much of that for a long time.
But yeah, ham radio. I remember Dawn going through saying, "Oh, I've got to take my test.
Yeah.
Got to take my test." It's like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, then I'm tutoring her, and it's like...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and in amateur radio, they call that as an Elmer. Where they come up with the name Elmer, I don't know. But the Elmer's the one that you sit and ask questions or study with and whatever. So
Oh, my.
I went back to school again to help her.
I think we got a new nickname for you.
Yeah, Elmer.
Well, out of all the things you've done in your life, what do you think you're most proud of?
Oh, that's a tough question. There's a lot of things. One thing I think I can say that I accomplished that took a little time. Several years ago, Indiana was one of the states that was on standard time. It was still Hawaii, Indiana, and Arizona. Well, our governor at that time said, Indiana, you got to make the move and go to the daylight savings time zone. Well, at that point, Indiana was all over the board. And they were going to piece out the state. Well, if you want to be on Central Time, you can. If you want to be on Eastern Time, you can, whatever. Well, the majority of the people where I'm from associated pretty much with the state capital of Indianapolis, not Chicago. We always said, that's our capital. Even though we're 100 miles either way, you go a county north where we were, and those people there associate more with Chicago. Well, they were bickering and bantering back and forth, and they ran a flagpole, and you really didn't have a time zone set, and they tried it. So I made up my mind I did want standard or central time. So what are we going to do about this? I talked to a few people, talked to the superintendents of the schools in the county, talked to the hospital administration. I said, what do we say here? What do you guys want? They said, we prefer Eastern. I said, tell you what I'll do. Let's get something started. So I've got where they could sign in. I can't think of petitions. There we go, petitions. So I got petitions started around the county, got those started. And then they were going to have a meeting at our local courthouse. Our courthouse system's a little different than what they do here in Eaton County. It's more centralized, and we don't have, offices all over the county like they do here. So anything that was going to be done, they have to notify the public that we're going to have a meeting. That meeting, they kind of kept it under their hats, and someone told me about it, so they were going to try and run Central Time Zone through. So I called South Bend television stations, excuse me, I called Indianapolis television stations. I said, guys, there's going to be a meeting. I think you want to be here. We had the petitions, and that morning, the meeting came about, and all these people showed up. I called the hospitals, I called the schools, and all those. They were there, and the commissioners were like, "Oh." Well, they kind of tabled it at that point, and they tried to slip it through the radar one more time. I got a call from my town office, one of the ladies that worked there, and she said, "Dan, they're going to have another meeting," and she said they have to show it 3 places. Town office, the courthouse, and one other public place. Well, they did it on a Saturday when no one was around. She told me. She told me when the meeting was going to be on that Monday. Again, I called the media, called the schools and that. Everybody showed up again, and we had the stack of papers. And that morning, they said, well, It looks like we're going Eastern time. They hit the gavel down, and that was it. So that's my claim to fame to getting that. So does anybody
So you
really
got-
say anything about it? No, but that's something I got through.
Wow, that's cool. So you got Indiana on Eastern time.
My county, at least with that portion of the state.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So, yeah, I suppose a little Don Quixote. I mean, I can tilt a windmill now and then.
That's excellent. I didn't really know that about you. So, the last question I have for you is, how do you think you want people to think? What do you want people to say about you? What do you hope they say?
Well, they say that's a loaded question, Joe.
Let's mean the positive stuff.
I would hope they'd say that I was a good guy. I tried to do my best. I know that's kind of cliched with a lot of people, but it's like working here at Prya Funeral Home. I treat everybody the same, whether they, don't have hardly a nickel to their name or they've got, more money than God. I treat everybody the same. They're going to get the same treatment from me.
That's right.
As you know, I pretty much will speak my mind. I'm not a yes person, and that probably scares you sometimes, I know. But I just want people to know that I'll do my best for them that I can, and I've always tried to do that,
Sure. And we've certainly appreciated that about
I
you.
hope so.
Oh, yes, sir.
I know I scare you sometimes.
No. Sometimes we just have to have a conversation.
Yes, we do. And he takes another Valium and he goes on.
I know
No, he
you
doesn't. No.
don't need that.
No, I appreciate you.
We just come up with a good joke and the
There
laugh,
we go, we
laugh
go.
works the same.
Right.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's been a great chat. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for joining
Well, thanks
us
for
on
having
Meet
me,
Your Neighbor.
Joe. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing, though, I can add to this if you want it.
Okay.
You want something you want to know about me, too, I could throw this in. I've been followed into bathrooms, restaurants, and other places, and people wanting to know and talking. Are you? No, I'm not George Blaha.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never met George Blaha, but I've been mistaken for George Blaha.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
For those of you who don't know who George Blaha is, he's the radio personality for Michigan State Sports. Yeah.
So maybe I'll get airtime. So on these days, if George can't make it, I'll fill in.
That's right. That's right. I do remember people saying, "God, do you have George Blaha work for you nowadays?"
Yeah.
No, not exactly.
Strange when men follow you into bathrooms. Today, you never know.
You mean to ask if you're
It's
really who that-
George
yeah,
Blaha,
okay.
yes.
Okay. Well, before we get any farther, thank you for being here
You're
today.
welcome.
Is it George?
Just call me GB.
Well, and thanks for watching another edition of Meet Your Neighbor.